Yeah, pretty pumped for this. We've had, I've been at TeamGenius for 3 years, and we've been talking a lot about, clubs using coach evaluations, uh, rather evaluating players from coaches, putting your players in teams and having your coaches do those evaluations. And one of the things we talk to a lot of organizations about is how do you do that? How do you enforce that? How do you know that they've done it? Had some ways where you could kind of lightly see who had done evaluations in the past. And a lot of clubs that I talked to, they want a way to, really enforce that they've seen that the coaches have done these evaluations, right? So, and I've seen that as far as coaches even saying, hey, or organizations saying, we might hold back part of a stipend or part of a payment or put that in a contractual obligation that you guys need to do these, in-season, mid-season coach evaluations, or as often as you want. So one thing that I'll show too after I get past the initial coach evaluation part that we added in is our sessions. And sessions are something that we added in probably about a month ago that really enable you to do kind of multiple seasonal evaluations inside of one assessment in kind of a cool way. So Ruth, do you have anything to add in before we kind of get jumping in here?
I think we're good. Do you want to just run through the demo and then have questions, or do you want folks to hop in if they have questions as we go along, or maybe pop their questions into chat to...
Yeah, I would say let's do a combination of that. So let's do chat on questions if they're about the coach features that we're going to walk through. And then if you guys have, after the first, say half an hour, we roll through all the new coach stuff. Anything you guys want to go through at that point would certainly be game for open Q&A, and certainly, anything you guys have for questions we can cover. So,
and we will stay on as long as you need us.
All right, so I'm going to jump into TeamGenius here. 1 second, we still got a couple more people joining. Move this over. And I'm going to share my screen. If you guys want to, if anybody's on their computer too, feel free to, kind of walk through what your system setup looks like too as we do this. Might give you a good run through on kind of initial coach setup, but I'm going to share my screen here. I'm going to do my desktop share. And can you guys see, just want to double check, Ruth, can you see just my TeamGenius account right now?
Yeah.
Okay.
Tim's got his thumbs up. This is good.
I've got multiple monitors. So when I first started, it looks like it looks like it's going to double back on itself. But so some of the new stuff here, right? So we opened up, looks a little bit different than the dashboard. This is your home page now. If you're an administrator logging into TeamGenius, this is what you can see in your home screen. One second, I just want to make sure I've got the Zoom pulled up so that I can also see participants if we have people that join. Okay. So we've got our home screen, and we've got some new sections here. So we've got our team section, which lets you guys do some various different things with teams. We'll go into that a little bit. Big thing you can see down here too in the lower right is our manage your teams. So about a month ago, we rolled out the manage teams option. Maybe it was 2-3 weeks ago. And then we rolled out manage coaches. So kind of to get into this, example, if you guys have created a TeamGenius team. So you've used TeamGenius to run your evaluation process, and you've put players on a team. These teams represent your TeamGenius team. So these would be the team that you created through your drafting process and place them on these teams in TeamGenius. Inside of the teams, when I click into one, you can have right now the name of the team that you've created, assign coaches to that team, and have a logo. I'm going to go back out of here. So an example of a team. So I've got a 2019-06 boys blue team. This is one that I maybe did a draft after my tryouts, put players on this. I can go in and I can manage the roster of this team. So I can actually see from all my available players who the players are that are supposed to be on this team, move them over and put them on that team for the roster. I can also assign those coaches. So like you saw in the team details, I can go in here and I can also put the coaches that are assigned to that. So I've got some coaches I've already put in here. So I've got Gabe, and I can say for this 2019-06 boys blue team, Gabe is the head coach. And then I can put in Ruth too. So I've already got Ruth in the system, and she's going to be the, let's see, she's going to be the, she's the head coach too. Okay. So maybe the head coach of the other part. So, so we've got our coaches in here associated with this team. I'm going to save that. And so that team is set up as an instance of a team after we ran our draft in TeamGenius. Some other options around teams that I'll get into later, people want to go into that. But the big one, I'm going to go back to my dashboard here, and we have the ability to create coaches in the system. So I'm going to click on this new button, which is Manage Coaches. And when I go in here, I'm going to be able to create coaches. I can see the coaches I've already got in here. So if I want to add a coach, I can just simply hit Add Coach. And then I can go into, maybe it's going to be Fred. Fred Big is a coach. I put in his email address here, which is an important step. So this email address is going to tie together them doing the evaluation with you sending them the evaluation. So it'll actually send to this email address. And that email address is how it's going to also track when you assign them to do assessments. This is how it's going to track that they've done that or not. So just important to put in that email address that there's the one they're going to use to do the evaluations. I'm just going to say they're coaching this same team here. They could be coaches for multiple teams, so you can put that here. So then when you click back into this Coach Fred, you'd be able to see all of the teams that he's coaching on and the different titles he has for each one of those teams. So I'm going to hit save here, and we just created Coach Fred as one of our available coaches. Now in this coaches menu, you can see that you can sort and filter. You can see that you can archive some of these. You can also add coaches and delete coaches. So kind of base functionality around the coaches in here. But where this gets exciting is when we get into the actual assessment, right? So we've got our coaches in here. So again, it's big changes, right? So instead of just the assessment setup, half your screen in the homepage is going to be assessments and then teams, and then really around that managing teams, right? So creating a team, managing teams, and managing coaches. I'm going to go into what I've pre-set up here is a 2020 fall coach evaluation. I'm going to click into this. For right now, the assigning coaches and tracking the coaches for their evaluations or their feedback evaluations can only be done in the coach style assessment. We've got two styles of assessment in TeamGenius. We've got the tryouts, which is if you've used our system, requires you to check a player in with their name and their player number. Our coach style assessment really is more set up for bringing the players in as their team and then evaluate them multiple times throughout the year. So it's just good to know that this needs to be done in the coach style assessment if you're going to create a totally new assessment from starting. So I've got an assessment here, and I've got setup, typical setup. I clicked on the left-hand side, scoring forms, whatever you guys want to evaluate your players on throughout the course of the year. Team spirit, athleticism, gameplay, technical aptitude, attendance to practice, all things that I see commonly in, doing coach evaluations multiple times over the, a month or week. I guess the clubs that I've seen do the most evaluations, I've seen them do maybe weekly ones. But different things. You can have as many things as you want here for your coach evaluations. Player pools is where it gets a little more interesting. So in player pools is where we can actually start assigning our coaches to those teams for this specific assessment. So if I wanted to have a new player pool, so I can add pool, and this could be my, whatever it's going to be as far as a team that I'm going to have the coach do evaluations on. So it could be my 2021 elite starters, could be the name of the team, right? And I have the ability to pick different evaluations. So I've got sessions, which is the feature that we rolled out recently to give you the ability to have multiple scoring sessions with different forms if you want in the same assessment. So I'm going to click just the fall evaluations, and this is where you can assign those coaches. So I'm going to assign Coach Fred to this one, and he's going to be the assistant coach, and I'm going to assign Coach Ruth, and she's going to be the head coach. So I've got my coaches assigned for this player pool. I can put in a description if I want. As you've seen before, I can also generate an access key that's going to be specific to this pool. That would mean that if I wanted to give out an access key, this key would only give people access to that specific pool of players, that specific team. I'm going to hit save. So now I've got those coaches in there, and they're associated with, that 2021 elite starters. Other things that are important is the evaluation schedule. So this is where you can actually set those time boxes. So I've got one example here of a fall evaluation, which is going to be, it's going to be just an open-ended one, or fall evaluation round 2, which is one that you can see here. I've set a time box in the setup that it can start on 8/11, so yesterday, and then end on 9/12. This is a feature we rolled out recently with the session, so they'll actually auto lock, so it'll unlock and lock around those dates. So you can actually preset those dates for that schedule. Anybody have any questions so far with any of the things that I'm walking through? All right, not seeing anything yet, so I'm going to keep rolling. Next important things as you bring your players in here are going to be, add players. And the add players, as you may have seen before, you've got a couple options on that. You can bring them in as TeamGenius teams. So you can bring them into your in-season evaluations as teams you preset in TeamGenius. You can also bring them in from a CSV file, Sports Engine, or TeamSnap. Player assignments. So I brought some players in here already. I've got these players that are on my 2020 Elite Gold team. As you can see in the coach style assessment, these players don't need a number associated with them to be checked into this assessment. So you can see that they don't have numbers associated with them. So they're all ready to go. They'll show up in the app. Now where it gets really interesting, and this is the kind of the crux of the new features we put in, is assigning coaches. So I'm going to click on assign coaches. And you can see all of the coaches that I've got in this assessment that are assigned to different teams. I can filter here by different things, assigned, unassigned. I can see the different sessions that I've got. So I've got that general session, and I've got one that's specifically time boxed. And then I can see the coaches that have availability. So this Gabe Skelly coach, I've set up so that he can score players in either of these evaluations. Ruth and Fred are right now only set up so that they can evaluate the fall general one. Once I select these assessments that I want them to do on their teams, so these sessions that are set up with those specific forms, I can hit send all invitations. So I can hit send invitations. So I'm going to send those to Gabe, and then I'm actually going to send one to Ruth too, so she can see this too. So I'm going to hit send invitations. It's going to resend them. So what this is going to actually do is it's going to send an email to your coaches to that email address, and it's going to have a deep link. What that's going to do, I'll show you in a second, but it's going to essentially send them a link to their email that will, one of two things. If they're looking at this on their computer, it will open into our web eval tool, eval.teamgenius.com, right into that player pool that they're supposed to be scoring. Or number two, if they're using their phone, they'll get it on their email. And if they've got TeamGenius installed, it's going to automatically log them in right into the players they're supposed to be scoring. So they don't have to do anything else. I just bring them right to where they need to score. I've got a couple people I've got to admit here. It's admitting the other people here. Give me 1 second, and I'm going to pull up my reflector so you guys can see my iPad on the screen. Ruth, can you see my iPad on the screen okay?
You're good.
Okay. So I'm going to switch the view here. So imagine I just got this email. I'm a coach that's been invited to do scoring on behalf of your organization. I'm going to hit start evaluating. And you can see that it automatically opened the TeamGenius app in just a second and pulled me into those players that I'm supposed to score. No fun, messing around with access keys or knowing where I'm supposed to get into. I can hit start, and I can go in here as this coach and just go in and start evaluating my players. If I wanted to do it where I actually did, a video, say I want to give them a little bit of video feedback on athleticism, I can click on the camera icon, click on that, take video. Great job on your athleticism. You could do some more deep squats and some sprints, but other than that, you're great. Use that. It'll attach to that comment. I could also type in some comments here if I wanted to on these players. Just put in some general scores and then put in some overall comments. Good to note as you guys are setting these up is if you have overall comments selected as an option, it's going to actually show as a criteria. I'll show you what this looks like, but it's going to show the percentages of the players that are scored. In the app here, you can see, these are players I've left to score. So I put some scores on that player. I'm going to go down to the next player and, put some scores in on that player. Pretty good on team spirit. Slide that over. Athleticism. gameplay. And then let's see, technical. Move that over to pretty good technical. We have voice dictation, of course. So if you're doing those in-season evaluations, your coaches would be able to dictate what they want to say and talk about the great things the kids have done and maybe 1 or 2 or 3 things that they need to do to improve. These are going to auto save, as you can see, the first time, in the app, just like you've seen before. Green check mark applies the first time you see it's auto saving and syncing. I can go back as a coach, hit those 3 check marks in the upper left-hand corner, and now go and keep scoring my players. So now that, say your coach is out there, they've scored a couple players, you don't know what they're doing, you think maybe they haven't finished scoring all of their players. Now I'm going to go into my assessment as administrator, and I can go to assignment status, and I can look and I can see, oh, so that Gabe Skelly, he's got his access keys and he's logged in, and oh, look, he's done 22% of the criteria that he's supposed to score on his players. So this gives you that ability to, go in and track how your coaches are doing on their, players that they're assigned to go in and put scores on. So right here, you can see that, that 22% is the percentage of criteria they've scored based on the total amount of criteria you've set for them to score. So in this example, it would be the, 5 criteria plus 1 criteria for overall comments that are the expectation of what they score throughout the course of the year. And then with that, you guys can, filter if you've got, a whole bunch of different coaches in here. Just like anywhere else in the system, you can do our advanced filtering to jump to, which coach has done these things or has not done these things by either the coach, title, the pools they're evaluating, the different evaluation sessions, and then also, this would be the different evaluation sessions. So this represents one session, and this represents another session. And that is, the basic setup for doing the coach evaluations with the ability to invite coaches with a deep link and be able to see their progress on this. And then, of course, as they're doing it, just like you've seen before, you can go in here and look at results. So I can go and look at my results of, my various players. I'm going to go to rankings and team placement so I can see it. And then, on this player, you can, of course, see the media where we took some video of how they did, some coach feedback, comments that were put in there on the players. And then with our new athlete report links, and you can also share those out via a secure web page where those players can then see their video media that you guys have taken if you do that as part of your evaluation process. In the past, you may have done some of these in-season evaluations and probably used to using the coach selector where it selects and deselects which coaches' scores you're seeing. And that was kind of where we got into a lot of people asking, hey, do you guys have an easier way that we can see, how much percentage-wise coaches have done of their evaluating instead of looking at the main, results screen? Can we see something else? So that's where we got into this assigned coaches, which will, easily send them that link that will either open in a web browser or open TeamGenius so they've got it downloaded. And then also the assignment status. So you can go in and easily see that percentage that they've done in part of that evaluation. So pretty cool stuff. I thought, so we've got over kind of the basics of that, but I wanted to go back a couple steps to the setup of this. So we've got our, coach evaluation, which I set up as a coach style assessment. In the setup, I've got scoring forms here. I've got one scoring form that represents, all the different things that we want to evaluate the players on multiple times. You could easily go in here too and clone that form and do, you do end of season eval form, and maybe in something like this, you want to add in another form that's going to be add criteria, something else that you guys want. So, basically anything you want. So add in some more criteria. I can go in here and say that I want to have this be actually buttons, and I could have the buttons be that the coaches are going to value them to be, it could be slow, fast, or say D1 fast. And so now at the end of the year, you'd have the ability to have, another end of season form that would have, an added criteria. You could add a couple criteria. in setting these up in the evaluation schedule. So now say we've got our fall evaluation is round 2, but I want to add another evaluation session. So this is going to be end of fall final evaluations, and they're going to use this end of season evaluation form. So that would be the only one available for them to score. I'm going to select all my various teams. I'm going to set a start and end date. So just so we can still see it in here, I'm going to select a start date of yesterday and say we really wouldn't probably have this going until, you know, the end of September. So I'm going to set the end of September. So this is going to time box it. I could actually set it, preset it so that it was available from September 29th to September 30th, and it would open and close automatically based on those time boxes. So I can save that, and then I can go back in. So then I've got this end of fall final evaluation set up. I can go back into my evaluations, and I want to assign coaches to be able to do that end of season one. So I can see all my coaches that are tied to my player pools. I don't want to resend them the emails to go and do these 2 evaluations they've done, but I do want to go in, and I'm going to send all my coaches an invite. They'll go to their email so that they can do that end of fall final evaluation where we added in that, you know, speed test or kind of speed subjective feeling on these players. Send all invitations. Yes, I want to send them. And within probably, you know, a minute or so, your coach is going to get that email now that's going to have that clickable deep link to either open a, you know, web evaluation on their phone or computer, or automatically open TeamGenius so they've got TeamGenius downloaded on their phone. So kind of cool thing there too is, so, you know, if they didn't have TeamGenius on their phone and they wanted to evaluate right now, and they don't have the ability to find it right this second, it would still open our, you know, web evaluation tool. So they could go and start evaluating right on their phone, but through that web evaluation tool. So these have all sent. Now, if I go into assignment status, I don't see any scores put in right now on that final end of season evaluation, but I can see that they, you know, those are open for them to put in scores. And if I wanted to, you know, look at what this would look like with the web evaluation tool, I can also jump right into it right here. So web eval is right there. I can click on that button. As the full administrator, it's going to pull me in with the access key where I can see all of the different sessions. And so example of right now, we've got all of these sessions open. So I could actually click on the end of season session, you know, grab all of my players. I can actually, since it's the admin key, I can not only see the session, but I can see all of the pools. I could click all the players I want to score, click on the form that I want to score them on, and go in here and put some scores on those players. And then this one would be a button. So say this guy is D1 fast. Go back in here and refresh. Oh, I see, because this wasn't tied to my email address. So it's not representing, even though that's me. But so very important, as I said before, that as you invite coaches, that they're going to be tied to their email address. And the way that we do that again is back at your home screen, a little different view than you've seen in the past. We go down to manage coaches, and pretty simple step in adding those coaches in. So we just go to add coach, first name, last name, email address, which is what's going to log and track them doing that evaluation as part of that assessment, and they'll be in the system. And again, when you go into look at any of these coaches, you can hit edit coach once they're already in here, and you could change their email address that they're going to be associated doing evaluations with, the teams they're part of. So say I want to take him off of this team, maybe add another team in here, hit save. And that's where you can do the coach details. Then that kind of rolls into teams too, like I talked about. So in any of these teams, right now you can also track what coaches are assigned. So this 2019-06 Boys Blue, 11 players rostered and 2 coaches assigned in that team. Good to note that this team instance is a little bit different than you guys might see if you're using teams in Sports Engine or TeamSnap outside of our system. So if you do an import right now, it will give you the option to import your teams and coaches, and it will import your coaches. It's more of a tryout style import. It'll import your coaches, and if you want to have them imported, it will create them as manager level users of their team. So it's a little different user level type. So kind of the idea of that there's a team that you might have in a different system, and these are your TeamGenius teams. So these would be the teams that you have that are set up from actually rostering the players onto these teams through TeamGenius. And then of course, these teams can be exported back to your CRM, either directly from TeamSnap or Sports Engine, or dumping a CSV from our system to other systems. So, and those are the majority of the setup of our coach options that we've added in. So I open it up for questions for anybody who's got questions.
We've got 4 questions in chat.
Okay, let me see here. All right, so let's look at the questions here. Right, Ruth, you want to read off the questions? We'll kind of go through them.
Right. So the first one is from Yvonne, who asks if he as a director of coaching can evaluate the coaches himself. Not the players, but actually coach evaluations of coaches. And I told him we have some sample scoring forms to do that, because we do have people who do that.
Yeah, we have some big clubs. One names that one of our clubs has got like 565 coaches. That is a beast to go and do their evaluations of, and they use our system to do their evaluations of their coaches too. So we definitely have some good templates that me and Ruth and some other people have worked on to make work for a lot of organizations.
Right. And just if that's not enough, you can actually do it with your referees as well. Jordan asks, when a coach inputs a video or comment for an athlete during an assessment, are those videos and comments shared for all coaches to see, or will only the coach who entered the comment or video be able to see it?
Yeah, so the coach that entered it would be able to see it, on their device while they are, doing their evaluation and it's open. Otherwise, anybody that's got the full administrative access can go into the results screen and see that. So they'd be able to go over to media and see that media inside of TeamGenius. So they could click on media and see those videos. So anybody that's got admin access could see those videos. Good to know too that if you upload media in TeamGenius, like if they could video through the app, it's not saving an instance of that on their device, so it's not going to be there after the assessment's closed. Versus if they upload video they've taken on their phone, which of course would already be on their phone, and then they would also have it repeated in TeamGenius. So easy answer would be no one else can see that other than the coach that is taking the video or feedback. But if you're a full administrator, you'd have access to see anything that's uploaded.
Right. So before I jump to Jerry's question, stay on that screen and go over to team placement and do the drop down thing so people can see. These teams are the teams that you created as a part of your team dashboard. So you now have the ability to manage and edit those teams. It used to be if you entered a team and misspelled the name or something, it just sort of added to the drop down and it was hard to clean that up. The new teams feature makes it easier to clean that up, and your teams are right there if you're putting kids on teams directly from this screen and the scores they've got.
Yeah, let me touch on that a little bit deeper too, Ruth. So if I go back to my home screen, and so we've reset some things up here, as you can see these teams. So if you can see managed teams, so this is going to be a more detailed dashboard of all the different teams you've got, and you can go in here and you can see all the players on it, any coaches that are assigned to that team. You can also click in to edit the team, manage a roster, email players. This is a new feature. So if you've got a team, you want to email your players of a start time change or different things around their season, you can just hit an email and email all the players right away. But a little change we have made is that to be able to see a coach or a team populate in that drop down, you need to put in here. So you could do Gabe 2020 test team. So I can create this team here. I can add some coaches. So maybe Ruth's going to be a coach. I can select the logo and hit save. And not until after I've got this team here can I go in. I can go back into that results as part of our evaluation and then actually put those players onto that team. So a little different change there as we make teams more of a kind of first class citizen in our setup here, so that you can then put players onto all those teams.
All right, we've got questions from Jerry and Keith. So Jerry wants to know, can players respond to the coach's evaluations so that it's a living document?
Right now, we don't have a real easy way to do that, since you would send it out via a PDF in an email. But certainly, looking at options around that.
Not yet. Keith, is there a copy assessment template function or something similar so you can make minor changes but keep the bulk of one to assign to another player pool?
Yeah, I mean, so you certainly can. I would just put all of your player pools in the same evaluation, right? So imagine your 2020 fall coach evaluations. You just have, all of your teams in there. And then in setup, you'd have your scoring form. And if you did need to have different scoring forms, so let's look at this a little differently. So we've got our fall evaluation, and we've got, eval 1, but maybe it's not as important that we change it too much based on the part of the season. But say we have, fall eval, and say maybe this can be our U12 players, right? So we actually want to have a slightly different fall evaluation for our younger players. We can add that in here. So fall eval U12 players, and I'm going to take out maybe athleticism. Maybe that's not as important, so I can delete that. Yes. And maybe I can change some other things. So I can create a different scoring form for those younger players, cloned off the one that I use for everybody. And now in evaluation schedule, I can go in here and actually create a specific, kind of schedule event for those younger players. So I can say, U12 fall eval. And in this example, I'm going to use just that U12 fall eval form that I created for those younger players, and say, I already know this, but my 2020 starters, yellow, are going to be my U12 kids. And I just save that. And so now that session would be basically available to only score those younger kids, and they would have that specific form that's got the criteria we want to score younger kids on already set up.
All right. So the last question in chat at the moment has to do with user permissions. The question is, can more than one person edit, assign, or monitor assessments from their individual accounts?
All right, so you can have as many administrators as you want. So if you're talking about, having your TeamGenius account under your organization name, you can have, a bunch of administrators that can see what's going on inside of that specific assessment. And then we've got the user permissions that are involved in the specific assessment. So, we've got the same different levels of users. So we've got one that's got player check-in only, which isn't super valuable in a coach evaluation manager level. So you could have someone that could come in here and see all the details on a specific team. So maybe this is going to be, the manager of your U15 kids, and the gold elite and the starters yellow are all your U15 kids. So you give somebody that level of access to be able to come in here and see all the feedback that your coaches have given on just those level of players. And then we got our owner level of access. So this is going to let someone come in and do pretty much everything inside of this specific assessment, but they won't be able to see details in your other assessments in our system. So there are these various levels of user permission aside from the full administrator permission in your system. And this would be, very different from your coaches and evaluators that are just putting in scores on players that can't see, the aggregated data that other people put in.
What else do you want to know? Other questions?
Gabe, Tim here.
Yeah.
I'm just wondering if this has any impact on the development reports.
Yeah. So, in the development reports, this is certainly pull in. I get, the more data points in different time, you're going to see that. So if we went into Fred thinks new, let's look at Q. If I go into a development report, and we'll see if I can find a good one here. So you can see in the development report, of course, all of the different assessments that they've been part of. And then you're going to see, inside those assessments, you would see multiple evaluation sessions as part of the data points they've got. So I guess kind of tying that in a little different way, you are going to see these sessions, how they progress over time, because all the data points that we pull in our these reports, I guess I'll go back to 40-yard dasher. here's some data points. They're all historical based on time. So it doesn't matter as much what they're tied to for session or evaluation, as long as they're the same evaluation standard and that they are time related. So you'd see them in here, and you'd see what part of the assessment or session they're part of.
Great. Okay, thanks.
One thing we did add into kind of on that question is the ability to email differently. So, you know, if we're in here and we're wanting to send emails to the players, we added in this ability recently to expand on the sessions. Now you can pick the session. So if I want to give a player their, you know, fall evaluations and just pick that session, it will let me just pick that session. And it will just send the players, you know, their report from that player and the players that were in it, and kind of stacking on that. So you could send them a report that's got just their fall session and just their end of fall session, or mixing around here. But when you select or deselect a session, it's going to put in the players that are part of that assessment, that session, and then also put in the scores for that session specifically. So it's very much boxing these. So imagine, you know, these are almost individual assessments within your big assessment. So it gives you more ability to have, you know, I guess, dive down to a bigger level of detail in a lot of things you can do in a given assessment. Anybody that wants to, certainly feel free to unmute yourself and, you know, open up to questions that you have on other things that we've been adding in. We've added in a lot of things in the last, you know, 2 or 3 months here.
Are there specific challenges you all are facing right now, using TeamGenius or setting up assessments or figuring out how to make it do what you want it to do?
I guess, Ruth, what I can tell you is that for us, we don't really have much trouble at all. I've been using it for, well, I guess since tryouts last fall, and we've been really happy with it. And my issue is not with our team. My issue is thinking about the best way to roll it out to the next generation, which is, so we now have a 7U program. We have about 25 players in that program right now, and most of those will make the core of our 8U rep program, which we'll be having tryouts for in the next couple of weeks, 2 or 3 weeks or so. So, you know, to the extent that I can have people sort of pick up where I leave off, I'm going to continue using, especially the player development reports. I find very helpful. The tryout assessment part of it is not such a big issue for us anymore, because we largely have our team settled and we're not expecting a lot of turnover going forward. But that's, to answer your question very directly, that's the thing that I'm focused on now, is trying to encourage the new people to pick it up for their teams for next year. And yeah, so that's, and I know that you folks have offered to work with some of those people. The thing is, right now, I'm not sure who those people will be, because we also haven't chosen our coaches yet. We have some pro coaches who are helping us with the development program, and they will help us identify some coaches. But that's going to be an important part of this whole process, because if they get into it the same way that I did, then I think they'll benefit from it in the same way that I have, and that I'm planning to continue to do so going forward.
All right.
Ruth, this is Yvonne. Just, I mean, the assessment process went much easier. There's a few things that I know I'll do different for next time, but I mean, the actual assessment process was very smooth. I think the coach assessment was the one thing that had me, I was thinking of 15 different ways that I was going to, you know, work around to create an assessment and kind of dummy it in the system. So this is actually great. The question that I have in terms of you know, the system usability and talking about Sports Engine. So when you sync it to Sports Engine in this case, and it's going to bring in, you know, will it bring in the teams and create the teams? If there's a team already created that I did manually, do I need to archive it before I bring it in? How does the the sync functionality with, like, for example, Sports Engine work in terms of the team and the team assessments?
Oh, I'm bumping that to Gabe.
Yeah, so right now the import from Sports Engine or Team Snap for that matter is going to pull in your players, and I know for sure Team Snap can create teams, but it's not going to be teams as the same way that you see them in TeamGenius. It's going to be teams as player pools, which is the way you'd want them to be set up for doing the assessments. But to have them set up, as the teams that are manageable through our teams function, it's a little bit different. So the teams in TeamGenius are more created so that you can push them back. So if you were to create teams in TeamGenius, which you can do through our teams feature, would then push and create a new instance of that specific team that you created in TeamGenius to Sports Engine or Team Snap. So if you were to go in here and say, bring in your teams, that's where you can get into. If you have a team that you created in here already, you can manage the roster and bring some players in to that team, or take some players off that team if you want to. But it's not a two-way sync where if you change some things, here it's going to affect Sports Engine, or if you change things in Sports Engine, they would automatically change things over here.
Perfect. Thank you.
So Yvonne had a question for me last night in email, and it's very similar to Christy's question right now. Are we still working on an attendance or a multi-day feature, both for a tryout style evaluation and for a coach style evaluation?
I would say it's something we're looking into. The attendance part's a little bit harder than the multi-day setup. With the sessions that we've got now, just like I showed the ability to do the evaluation schedule, you could certainly do multi-days. So this could represent day 1, day 2, day 3 that you can automatically time box. The tracking attendance is a little bit harder. It's something I think we're looking at still down the road right now. There are a couple ways that I work with customers to track attendance. I know the biggest thing that people run into often is they don't want to uncheck all their players and recheck them in. But sometimes we can, do things with evaluation groups to represent them being there or not there for a certain day, or some other things in the system. But we don't have the exact, attendance tracking option right now.
Other questions?
One of the nice things too, with some of this is all of these feed into, like Tim was talking about, was our player development reports, which are now on our main dashboard, where the more assessments you guys do of your players, the more you have to share on these player development reports, where you can really show progress over the lifetime of these athletes working with you guys. So you work with a player from when they're 12 to when they're 18, and when they graduate from their program, you can give them a nice report, which I've seen some clubs even taking part of that and printing it out on hard stock paper and handing it to them. But even if you don't go that far, it's giving you a really nice base for showing the players and parents how much they've progressed working with your organization. So the more of these coach evaluations you do, the more feedback you're getting to your players, and the better they get as athletes. And really, aside from that, the new feature really will help you guys with both getting coaches into the system that maybe are a little bit tech challenged, or didn't want to do the access keys, or that was a little bit hard. Kind of that was part of our thinking about it, was making it easy for the coaches to get in by just clicking on that button in their email, and then making it easy for you guys to see how much your coaches have done. I guess question for anybody that's on the call right now is, do you guys incent your coaches around or because of doing multiple evaluations? So do you guys have that as part of your club identity, that you have multiple evaluations over the year that you give feedback to parents? Do you just do them, or is it kind of something that you guys want to get into doing?
So Gabe, in Waconia, we provide a post tryout evaluation to let players know how they did and where they ranked, in the tryout. In the season, we do a mid-season evaluation and an end of season evaluation. and we do that for the fall and for the summer. And then we've just started with the coach evaluation since I came on board. That's the first thing that we kind of started, is to provide a coach evaluation where coaches have to meet with me once per month. We either meet as a group or we've had, individual Zoom meetings, but then we talk about development. And so that's why I was asking, in terms of evaluating coaches, this will expedite a lot of the things that I have, because then I may not need to have a Zoom meeting with them. I may be able to just now do the assessment. They can see my video, they can see my feedback, and then they can, respond. So that's how we do it. Or at least that's a culture that we've been developing and putting into place.
Yeah, I mean, that'd be nice if you guys did it. You could easily do an assessment that would be your evaluation of coaches, and pretty easy for you to come in here and look at the, the evaluation, the coach assignment status, and just say, hey, Coach Bob, you've done 0%, and Coach Fred, you've done 8%, and kind of go down the line and see how they've done as far as actually, grading their players. And there's a lot of things around that.
So there's a little bit different question from Rick about the teams and the logos. And is there an image size restriction for the logo on a team? Oh, he's getting an error when he's working with that.
I'm not sure. I know I honestly just have some pictures that I picked that were kind of random to try it and upload some things. So I'm guessing what I have here isn't super big, but we can certainly, ask our developers and see if there's a size on that.
Okay. Size restriction.
Oh, I was going to say too, on the, coaches, if you guys wanted to evaluate coaches, or referees for that matter, which is a big thing a lot of clubs like doing, you also get that lifetime development on them, right? So if you end up doing evaluations of your coaches in TeamGenius, you get those development reports that are pretty sweet, that you can look back on and see if there were development areas for your coaches, or things that they did really well at, and progress that over time. So you can see, if they did something really well last year in the spring and really well in the fall, if they're continuing to improve on things that they do, next spring. Same thing as your players, right? So it's good to always have coach development plans for all of your coaching staff as well as players in the big scheme of, getting better as organizations, which is, I think, what we all try to do all the time. So. Any other big questions that we can help with, as people are, working with TeamGenius right now? Any certain challenges that you're having with any things you need to track specifically, or any things like that?
Not necessarily something that we're having an issue with, just to let you know. So after the success of the soccer program putting this to play, now the softball and baseball program are asking us if we can, put this into play for their evaluation. So I think I think speaks volumes to how good and how easy the assessment process is. So, and also we were able to, by the way, Ruth, you were absolutely correct in the amount of days you saved me. We were able to, for the first time in program history, we were able to post rosters 72 hours from tryouts for the fall. And we had the option to do the summer as well, but we decided to wait a little bit. We'll be posting summer rosters for the first time in the program history in the same, time period as the fall, as opposed to having to wait until February to get things done. So this has helped a ton.
That's cool.
That's great feedback. I love that too, is we got clubs that come in and they have to wait days or weeks to figure out who's on what teams, and they take their, coaches that are part of the decision process in a room and do kind of a draft or placement really fast. And then, this report, if, the more players you have on here, but it shows all your players that you put on teams, all of your unassigned ones. And with that, you can also quickly, email all of your players their team placement and let them know what teams they made it onto. So that's super. I always like to save people as much time as possible.
Yeah. Or that dreaded, you did tryouts all week and then you have the coaches meeting on Sunday to arm wrestle over the kids.
And if anybody's wondering, what my suggestion is, usually get together and pull up the, the results dashboard from TeamGenius, and just have everybody go over and, rankings and team placement. You can see your players stack ranked and just place them on teams. And it's pretty easy to do if you put it up on a projector, if you've got people in person, or it's pretty easy to do too, like we're doing today over a Zoom meeting, where you can just have somebody, have a poll of everybody in the room and have somebody do the drop down, put them on their teams, and a couple hours you can be done with all of your team placement.
I did have one question because I got cut out at the beginning. Is there a way to import coaches from CSV, Gabe?
At this point, there's not. Right now, to add coaches in, it's going to be going through that manage coaches button and on the home page in the lower right, and just adding them in. The nice part is it's first name, last name, and email is really the only requirements to get them added into the system to begin with. So, but certainly looking at, that's something we'll add into in the future, is probably an ability to bring in coaches from, other sites and add them in more easily. But, kind of our first generation here with this, and seeing really feedback. So if you guys are using this and you give it a try, give me and Ruth lots of feedback on what you guys are seeing and how it's working. And because we built this because of feedback from you guys, asking for ways to, track your coaches and more easily invite them. So yeah, short answer, no, we don't have a way, but, certainly based on feedback, something we're going to look at down the road. Because honestly, when our dev team was showing this to me and Ruth, that was one of my first questions too. So how can we support the coaches, really easily? And right now it's going to be type them in, which, doesn't really take that long. It's, not as fast as importing a file fast, but something down the road for sure.
Yeah, we've got a couple of large clients for whom typing them in one by one is going to take a little bit of time. The good news is once they're in there, they're in there. You don't have to upload them for every assessment. They're in there once you put them in there.
Yeah, so once you put in all your coaches, you'll be able to go into, your pools or where you're going to assign your coaches, and then select from, all the coaches you got available.
Hey Gabe, one use we have with this is we have our coaches do an end of the year evaluation of the players.
Mm-hmm.
And then we can have two purposes. One is to send out reports to the parents, kind of get a feedback on how their kids did over the season and what they can work on over the summer. The other is kind of providing additional information for tryouts for the following season. And as you can imagine, that data can somewhat be a little bit different depending on, you want to be a little more sensitive when you're sending reports to parents. Is there a way to separate the reports, the reporting out and by question or by section?
Yeah, for sure. So that's where we get into, to do something like that, where say you've got scoring forms in here, where you've got, all your player-based stuff, and then say you've got one that, we could even add a scoring form and say it's going to be, internal. Feedback on players. We're going to let it be, we're actually not going to have any of these sessions right now. So internal coach feedback on players, save this, build out the questions that you want to have for that. It could be, it's anything. We'll just click on one, say technical, but any of the questions you're going to have. Go in here and your coaches would be able to score the players on both the internal feedback and then also the thing they want to go out. We'd set up an evaluation schedule, and we would do one that would be their standard one, and one would be, internal. Select that internal coach feedback, select all of your player pools, hit save. And so what it would do is it really give them two spots that they would be able to see. It would be they'd see they'd see a button to collect for their standard evaluation and one for internal. And then when you get to the messaging and you go to send emails, you would be able to, select, say you want to have the one that goes to players, and you've got, players that have been evaluated on fall evaluations. and the internal one, well, you just don't select that internal one. So then the players are only going to get the one that's pertinent to the players, but you're still going to see the roll up of that internal evaluation in your results.
So it's not two separate evaluations they're doing?
Nope.
Okay. Yeah, perfect. Yeah, we'll definitely be using that.
Hey, Joyce, does that begin to get around what we were talking about this morning in terms of some evaluations of your coaches that they wanted to do before tryouts? Sort of to, okay.
I have a question, Gabe. I went in and I did edit the coaches, and I added a few coaches to our list.
Yep.
And then when I went over into the assessment, and I selected the assessment, and then when I was in the assigned coaches area, the new coaches didn't show up.
Oh, so they're tied to the player pool first, is how they get into the assessment. So
Okay.
since they're all tied to the player pool. So if you go to your, whatever player pools you have, go to edit your player pool, and then put the coaches, assign the coaches that are supposed to be evaluating that player pool.
Okay. Perfect.
And then once you have them in there, you'll be able to, have them the evaluation schedule. You can assign them to whatever evaluation schedule they're supposed to be part of. And then you should be able to come down and see that, assigned coaches, where you can then send them those emails right away. And I would say, try this out with yourself too, just so you see what it looks like. But, basic email that just inviting them to click that button and start doing their evaluations. Any other questions as we kind of come up on the top of the hour here? I can certainly answer some more questions if anybody has anything. We made a lot, like I said, we made a lot of changes. It's mostly about the assigning coaches and coach options, but if people have other questions, certainly open floor for that for a couple more minutes too. All right. Well, I think we'll wrap it up here. Thanks everybody for participating today and joining. Hopefully you, like what you saw, give it a test. Let me know via, email or the help button and contact us, or send Ruth a message and let us know what you guys think. We're certainly looking for feedback on this, and appreciate everybody's support of Team Genius. And we're just, you guys know we're here to help. So let us know what's going on in your sports and in your parts of the country and world. And we're always here to help.